What's up? This is JBM from Mr. Creepshow 09. This is going to be the closeout video. Just recapping some things up. October 31st, 2013. Happy Samhain. And this vintage slasher movie marathon is officially over. And I just want to thank everyone. Even if you only saw one video or 1 minute of a video or left a comment, or saw a bunch of them like White Shadow 691 and R.I.P. Myers and Keckler's comeback to YouTube. Definitely appreciate you guys and your horror knowledge. I would love to talk to you guys sometime and talk horror movies with you guys. And I plan on doing podcasts with Keckler, and I got a bunch of film recommendations from White Shadow 691. Put it in my playlist to watch list. And yeah, awesome month. It was really tough doing all those slashers. I didn't even do 31 days worth of slashers. I gotta level with you. It got really depressing there at one moment. In between watching Scream 1981 and House of Death 1982, I swear to God, you try and watch 31 70s and 80s slasher movies again. Now, I love it because it's the golden age of my favorite subgenre of horror. By the way, I'm going to pretty much drop reviews for the distant future and going to just talk about horror subgenres and decades of horror and my favorite horror posters and different shit like that. So looking forward to that. We're going to talk hippie horror, the generation of the late 60s, early 70s with Keckler in the future. But I've always been enamored, and I'm not a connoisseur of the golden age of slashers because I obviously wasn't around at that time. I was born in 1987. So by the time I was, in school in the 90s and everything, guys like Jason and Freddy Krueger were like legends, were like absolutely legendary to kids. Like, you absolutely knew it. I never even really watched the movies when I was that young. Wasn't allowed to until I was like past 10 or whatever in the late 90s. But horror was just so huge, and I can't even imagine how awesome it was because when it was at its zenith in the 80s, that's why I'd love to talk to guys like R.I.P. Myers and other, like the 13th Wolfman, who have gone through that, and the rise of home video. Oh, I would love to talk about what it was like back then, and I could only imagine what it was like back then because by the time I was growing up, all the mom and pops local video stores were being run out by corporate chains like franchises like Blockbuster, and they don't specialize in genre films. They do new releases and big budget films or whatnot. So, and once all those opened up and crossed over to DVDs, out went all the VHSs, and with it, now a lot of these movies are really obscure, or more obscure than they were back then, or forgotten, and what else can I say? Just gonna go a little recap through. The first video was an Evil Laugh, awesome film. Then it went through the rough stretch of Scream and House of Death, and it's not like I even did this consecutively. I honestly lost like IQ points. I couldn't even keep up with it. I honestly just wanted to review other horror movies, but I already announced that it was going to be a vintage slasher movie month. So I kind of stayed true to that. The thing is, I was already on a slasher binge at the beginning of the summer, so I wasn't really into it. Then once came August, I hardcore got into Amityville Horror. Listened to all the interviews, watched all the documentaries again, read the Jay Anson book for the first time. Amazing. They should do an interpretation of that with the white hooded ghost and Jody the pig. with the spade feet, footprints in the snow. Oh yeah. And I did like Amityville Horror Archives videos. I was going to do a whole series of them. I ended up only doing 3. You could check those out on Villain Radio. Plan on getting to that more. Anyway, then after that, you know, I was already watching slashers all summer, and then by September I was watching them again, you know, uploading them, and then I didn't upload them until October for this slasher movie marathon. And then by this October, I hardcore got into short horror stories and novels. Bought a bunch of lots on eBay. Haven't even been watching movies. I've just been writing my own short stories. Writing 10 different screenplays at once. Never even getting one done, you know? Just all work in progress. I'd love to contribute to the horror genre one day. And just because horror movies just didn't get hardcore enough. I mean, you go through this stage of, if you were born in the 80s like me, or late 80s, and okay, you read Goosebumps books, and you watch the TV show, and you watch Alone in the Dark, and you watch Tales from the Crypt, and then you want something more hardcore, then you start watching the old ones, and then the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, then the even more gory stuff, then the torture porn, and the Hostels, and then once you get to a certain point where you're like, this isn't even hardcore enough, and it still isn't even hardcore. So then I've been reading short horror stories just so I could use my imagination more when they pile on with the descriptive adjectives. And like I said, you could just use your imagination for the macabre more. So, like I said, I'm going to cut back on reviews, try and write more. Hopefully one day. Don't want to be a director. Just like writing the stories and the characters. And cross your fingers. Halloween Season 3, Season of the Witch remake. Absolutely would love to write that script. And cut out kind of the sci-fi and robots. And give Cochran more of a background. Fingers crossed. Okay, October 2013, that's another thing. Nothing's even hotter. Witchcraft is the hottest thing in horror right now. And so I was totally out of slasher by the past few weeks because American Horror Story Season 3, Coven. What else? Season of the Witch. And then I bought this one book where it has 100 short stories on witches. Most of them suck ass. One story was like, we were eating cheeseburgers and malts like a couple teenagers at the LA skater rink, and I gave the waitress the money for the check, and she rolled away with the roller skates. Oh, and here's the ending. Oh, bad things happen on Halloween, and I took him into my house, and I was like, now do you believe me? As I raise up my dagger, and that's the ending, and I'm like, oh my god. Oh, there's bad horror everywhere, let's admit it. Anyway, this video is going on way too long. All I have to say is happy Samhain, and I'm out. This was JBM for Mr. Creepshow 9 on October 31st, 2013. Thank you guys once again.